One nice thing about importing 3D content is that it makes it very easy to create environments to work within for your 2D characters that have a different characteristic or different nature when you look at them, when you use them, all the while rendering like flat objects. Let's go ahead and do that right now. The first thing I'm going to want to do is to go ahead and import 3D object, and it has to be an OBJ file, and import house object. We need to go ahead and shrink the scale of this. Let me go ahead and bring this down to something like 0.01. It's a number that seems to work well in these circumstances. And I am going to grab this layer and pull it down a little bit into our field of view. With my mouse wheel, I'm simply going to give myself a little more room to work on the stage here and click and bring this down even further. Now, I don't like all these lines. We've learned how to go ahead and modify that. So I'm going to double click on the house object, and I'm going to rename this House 1. I'll come to 3D options, turn off silhouettes and creases, choose OK, and that looks all right. The background is kind of blending in with the house right here. If I had a different colored background, it wouldn't be a big deal. I think what I am going to do for the sake of this is on the general layer here, turn outlines on and choose apply. Now this won't show up here, but when I do a quick render, we'll see that we have a perimeter running around the building, which works okay in this case. Well, let's go ahead and build a little bit of a 3D environment. As we get ready to go here, I'm going to create a new group. And we'll just name this neighborhood. What if we had a couple houses corner to corner and our characters were to walk between them? We know we can animate the camera and turns, and we can do that with the characters, and we'll have something called point at, which we'll get to in special effects, which makes it really interesting. So all these things are starting to interact and integrate right now. I'm going to take House 1 and plunk it right into the neighborhood layer. What I'll do now with House 1 is duplicate this layer, so I don't have to import again, and it automatically increments to house number 2, since I had a number on there. That's fine with me, so I'll hit Enter. What I can do now with this layer is go ahead and click and drag one direction. And we see that our houses are getting cast in perspective and we don't have to do anything. That, of course, is fantastic because it means less drawing for us and it can look like a 3D scene with our 2D characters in front of it. If I repeat that process and we get house 3, I can go ahead and click and drag that over here and we have instant neighborhood, really nice. If we want one of the houses to, say, turn 90 degrees, then what we do is with the Rotate Layer tool, I'm going to go ahead and click left, right, and hold the Shift key and move that down like this. And I am going to go ahead and switch to a 4 view right here of my scene. And in this window space down here, let me switch back to my Layer tools. I am going to highlight this so we get this gray box going around it, come up to View, and instead change this view to top. This will let me see my 3D objects in here, and I can see that I actually over-rotated that building. So let me go ahead and click and drag this a little bit, and now move it in 3D in space there. I'll click and drag and move it up like the corners are set right there. Looks very close to us here, but we can start building scenes super quick that have all these perspective lines that we don't have to draw. Very, very nice to work with. If I go ahead and render this scene out here, let me reselect this box, switch to a single view here, and choose Render. Well, we're getting houses with detail involved that we just simply don't have to mess with. What a time saver. Okay, with that done, let's go ahead and close this, and no, I'm not saving. We're going to do something a little more complex now in building our scene. Instead of working with individual elements, we're going to have one element, and it could be a scene that's pre-built that you bring in with multiple buildings. In this case, it happens to be the Colosseum in Rome. So we'll come down to OBJ 3D Import. I'll highlight this, and we'll choose Colosseum. I'll double click on this and this will come in rather massively. It's a larger file, and I need to just throw out this warning that the more complex the files are when you bring them in, the harder time Anime has working with them. It's not a 3D application per se. It handles low resolution 3D files. There are some car models out there. There are plant models that are made up of thousands, if not tens of thousands of polygons. Anime does not like that, and it will bring your program to its knees while it tries to figure out all the math to operate that. Just be aware of that. Okay, let's go ahead and scale this, but maybe not as far. How about 0.5? Since we want this to be, well, rather large. It's a Colosseum. Now, I am not seeing anything in here. Let's go ahead and go to our 4 view here so we get an idea of what's going on. And you'll notice the scene magically redraws. That is a preview issue with Anime Studio Pro. Just know that it's out there. There's times that you may need to just refresh the screen and have it draw that. It's because this CG is getting more and more complex. Let's go ahead and double click on this layer. Another little bug, I believe, maybe this is Mac-centric, I'm not sure, is that the more complex the scene gets, the program doesn't respond to double clicks to edit the layer options. You have to come up to the little ellipsis, these 3 dots just above it for layer settings. Click that, and this time we're going to come to 3D options and turn off silhouettes and creases and choose OK. This will also accelerate the program because it's not having to calculate all that stuff when it's working. So we've got the Colosseum into our scene right here. We can get ready to start animating with it, and how we work with that, we'll do that in our next movie.